this year. So I'll hand over to Alison now. And
Right. Well, thank you very much. And this is, of course, pretty perfect timing for this topic because the industrial strategy was published yesterday and had quite a lot to say about teaching for industry and technical skills, rather less, in my view, about learning for life, but maybe we'll come to that later. So I think that, as Alex has said, there is enormous interest from government in rebalancing the higher education system. And I'm not sure how easy that will be. The department has a new inquiry into levels 4 and 5. There's been a lot of discussion. I mean, putting my own cards on the table, I've written about it quite a lot. I think the current funding system pushes everybody towards 3-year degrees, which interestingly seem to be reflected in the survey from the membership here. But what is clear is that at the moment, for a variety of reasons, the higher education system in this country, which looked quite stable 3 or 4 years ago, has become considerably less so. So we have, as you can see, 3 extremely expert panelists who I am going to give their heads. And I will actually just go, I think I'll just go Philippa, Janusz, and then Charlotte, simply because that way I can remember where I am. And we're going to follow the normal panel format. Each of the 3 will speak for between 5 and 10 minutes, and then I will throw it open to the floor for questions and comments. And I don't know whether each of you will be speaking to both the topics, which are not quite the same. Teaching for industry and learning for life are not quite the same. But Philippa, over to you.
Gosh. So where I sit, I'm involved in both the higher education reforms that Viscount Younger referred to, as well as, dealing with the reforms to apprenticeships and technical education. And we are trying to build a really good, credible classroom-based offer through T-levels, as well as developing the apprenticeships. I don't think anybody knows what the right numbers are that should go to any particular form of education, and I'm not particularly keen, I should say, on the academic technical split. I think that universities offer a lot of professional and technical education as well, but that we need, and that's why we're doing the reforms, greater variety and greater variety of provision, greater occupational-based provision, and that's what we're in the process of building. I'm very conscious, though, that the Institute for Government said it was the 29th piece of major reform that government has embarked on the technical education side, and obviously I would very much like it to be really successful. And part of its success is not just building T-levels, building apprenticeships, reforming higher education. It is all around the wrapper, really. It's around the information, advice and guidance. It's around the incentives. It's around making sure that you've got sort of the investment in facilities and equipment, making sure you've got the staff. And actually, I think, getting people to appreciate the value of different types of education. And being very clear on sort of, in a sense, brand value. A-levels to universities has a very clear brand value. Whereas further education doesn't have a stronger brand, and apprenticeships don't yet have a stronger brand. So there is quite a lot of work here, which is sort of cultural, behavioural, as well as simply developing really good, high-quality qualification routes. And I always feel that we're doing a lot sort of on the supply side, but really and truly, we really want a system that is very responsive to demand, and it needs to be responsive to demand, whether it's short term, but we also need to encourage medium term and longer term thinking about the skills that the country needs. And obviously government does that, but we need employers to do that, local communities to do that. The local industrial strategies are a vehicle for doing that, because we are in a period of really rapid change, and there is no way that the skills that you learn sort of between 18 and 24, the skills, knowledge and behaviours that you learn there are going to last you throughout your life, which takes me on to the sort of lifelong learning point. So we are doing career learning pilots, and you will have seen a reference to the National Retraining Service, which has got particular emphasis on digital and construction. So we are starting to look at more closely sort of lifelong learning. But it's how to get the demand side really sort of knitted together with the supply side, as well as the cultural and behavioural aspects that are the things that I think about most. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'd like to turn over to Janusz now. And could I ask you, first of all, to just say a little bit about this amazingly exciting new institution that you are taking over? Because I think it is, in all sorts of ways, a first, in sort of organisationally. And I was just cheering like crazy when the government gave you the sort of the chunk of money that you needed to really get going. So I don't know how many people here know very much about it, and I suspect probably at least some of you don't. And since I do think it has some it reflects some real thinking about how to particularly address the teaching for industry point. Before sort of ranging a bit wider, could you say a little bit about the new model?
I'll do so with pleasure. Perhaps, if you don't mind, I wanted to illustrate a few points, including a few points about my own university with slides. So should I go there, or you will be? Okay. Okay. Yes, indeed. So we created a new, we call it university. I hope you don't mind that I'm going to refer to the university. That's our ambition, and at some point we will establish one. But before doing so, what I wanted to do is to offer my own analysis of the situation, especially in the UK, especially with regards to engineering and technology. It's easier for me to do so because I'm really new to the country. I came from all over from Canada, where I spent most of my career. And when I came a few months ago, I realized that it seems that we do have a problem especially in the area of engineering and technology. It's not a problem only here in the UK, by the way. It's a similar situation in Canada, a similar situation in the United States, very likely in Europe, although I wouldn't want to say so. Now, the problem is related to the fact how we prepare our students for their life after graduating from the university. And it's very important to look at it because the truth is that the technology is changing how we live, and technology is, to a degree, changing who we are, how we behave. So it is important to make certain that the type of education that we are offering is relevant to what's expected by the society from our graduates. Now, if you look at those numbers, and as always, when you have numbers, there will be some disagreements. So please consider it only as an indicator. But we've heard from industry, employers actually, not just industry, that the majority, overwhelming majority of students that we graduate are not properly prepared. And I will refer to the fact why not later on. What was really shocking to me is to realize that we have less than 10% of engineering student body are females. That is what it means, of course, is that we're missing a perspective, a different perspective that and talent that is going somewhere else. A lot of women, they go to study law and medicine and sciences, but not technology and engineering. So we are suffering from that. And at the same time, we're hearing that we as a country here, we need a substantial number of extra engineers in order to help the our economy. Now, so Alex, if we move forward, so what we decided to do is we came to the conclusion that we really need to expand engineering programs, and we are grateful to the government that also considered the need. We are grateful to the industry that supported that need, but we also felt that we need a different kind of an engineer. I mean, we need somebody that will be able to understand more than just technology and science, somebody that will be able to understand public policy, and will be able to understand the needs of communities. So we designed a program, we call it a humanist engineer, somebody with more perspective than just technology and engineering. Now, why so? Because you're very familiar with the fact that technology and engineering is disrupting the type of industries that we have. If you look at the car industry, for example, it's completely evolving and changing, and in a few years it will look completely different. So on one side, we are disrupting the existing the existing industries. On the other hand, we are also creating new industries such as AI. So Alex, if we can move to one. So we are creating those new industries, and then it is artificial intelligence has just been mentioned in the white paper, the industrial white paper that was published, I believe just yesterday. Yes, we were very pleased, by the way, that our university was mentioned that on page 108. So artificial intelligence is one of them. In advanced manufacturing, robotics is the other. Now, that's all right, Alex. We can say it. So we can see that there is a dramatic change that is happening in the type of industries relevant to technology, relevant to engineering. So we felt that we are very close to a sort of a big bang that is going to drive different kind of education, especially in these fields. Now, why so? Because it's students are really demanding different kind of education that is preparing them much better for employment, and they invest in their own education. So, of course, they require and expect a proper return. The content is now available to everybody. Actually, there is one provider of content, edX. It's a company out of MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And if we are not going to provide our students with proper education, this is exactly where they are going to go. Now, employers are telling us that we have to prepare students in a completely different way than we are preparing right now, which is currently there's a lot of focus on theory rather than practice. And thanks to the actions of the government here in our country, in the UK, we felt that if we combine all those elements, it is an opportunity to do something different. So Alex, if we could click on there's different. We felt that if we are to create a new university, a new set of opportunities, you have to change the way how you interact with students and how you educate students with clear focus on learning by doing things rather than learning by listening. So in our setting, in our university, let's move on, Alex. What we, that's all right. In our case, we felt that we're not going to have. Yes, we can.
You're okay.
Yes, we can keep this just for a moment, because that it is important to say. If you're new then it's very important to create meaningful partnerships. So we developed such partnerships with our friends from Warwick, and so they are our validating partner, but they are much more than a partner. Actually, they are truly friends. They are participating in the process from the outset, contributing to the process. Most importantly, they feel that they are benefiting from it. The government is our partner, community, and of course industry. Why? Because of the very nature of what we are offering. So that's all right. There's nothing better than having a teamwork. So Alex, we didn't practice it, but it seems that it's working. So what we did is we created this new university. I hope you don't mind. I'm referring to it university, although we don't have it in the name. In it, we are new. We believe that what we are offering is bold, it's different. Some people may think that it is radical, but at the same time, it is rigorous and demanding. So what is it that, and how different we are? So Alex will be able to, is it working now?
I was just out here.
Okay. If you want me to, I can go and stay there.
Wow, clearly.
Yes. Right. So look, let me say we are not going to offer lectures. We believe that lectures per se are passé. So this is a drawing from 14th century Bologna University. It's a Henry of Germany speaking to students. It's more or less, if you went to any lecture hall at almost any technical university or engineering program, this is how more or less we keep teaching our students. So we felt that it is not the way how we wanted to do it. What we decided to do is rather having employers and helping us develop a curriculum and then deliver it together in short sprints. So our students spend time at least 1 week every 4 weeks. They spend time on the premises of the companies, and companies bring the projects to us, and students work on those projects. They have 15 of those projects over the year, which means that they stay with us for 46 out of 52 weeks. That means, of course, that they will be able to shorten their education, spend less on their education, and enter the workforce faster. Most importantly, throughout their studies, they will be able to interact with 25, maybe 30 different employers. So it's highly likely that they will be able to find employment and potentially with more than one the provider. Now, so essentially what we said is we place the employability of our students at the very core of the university. Now, we also said because our students will, every 4 weeks, they working on projects for industry, they would need to make something, design something, they would need to solve something, they would need to learn by doing and to create something practical. We felt that it doesn't make sense to have exams. If you look at it, if you study just for a term and then on a Friday afternoon you have an exam, you don't feel well, and then it will decide, not altogether, but it will decide to a high degree what mark you're going to have. It doesn't make sense. What we felt is that we're going to, on the other hand, you have to assess students. So what you have to do is you have to, in our case, it will be, students will be assessed based on their portfolio of achievements. They are going to have 15 different achievements in their portfolio, and they will be assessed that way, together with our partners from Warwick. Now, the other change that it's very important to us, and it's a little easier for the new institution, is to truly bring a gender balance to our institution. We really need more female students in engineering, and what we decided to do is we knew from the outset that we cannot create any preferences for women. We have to create more opportunities with regards to focusing your curriculum on social issues, more social value in the projects that we're going to have. At the moment, I'm really pleased to say that we're doing quite all right. We are at a level of 40%, so it's the very beginning, but we are on track, and hopefully we will be able to make certain that this will be delivered. Now, most importantly, I think, is to provide an opportunity to young people to interact with employers during their education. And there are many different ways. It could be an internship, so they are placed on for a predetermined period of time and stay there with the employer. In our case, we felt that it is much better to have this intertwined in the curriculum per se. I'll be happy to comment perhaps later on it, but then it's time to pass on the baton to my colleague here.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. And I suspect there will be a lot of questions. So last of all, I'd like to hand over to Charlotte. And I'm sure there are lots of things that you want to talk about, but could I ask you in particular, I was interested to note that at IBM, as well as starting degree apprenticeships with people who come straight onto a degree apprenticeship program, you do also have people coming up through level 3. And that seems to me to be enormously important because I have to say my own sense is that at the moment those links don't actually happen that much or that easily. And Philippa, you sort of talked about T-levels, you talked about apprenticeships, and then over here we're back with universities and how do you get university title. And actually, it still feels as if there are two separate systems in the room. And clearly, degree apprenticeships and how they are provided, whether they really become large in volume, and where the off-the-job element takes place. I mean, this is actually, I think, extremely important for the future of industry and of lifelong learning. So I'd be very, very interested if you're able to touch on that and what you have to say.
Absolutely, I'd love to. And it's really fascinating that we started our apprenticeship programme in 2010. We started with level 3 technical apprenticeships. There was no level 4 available at that time. And lots of the apprentices then, they didn't want to go to university. They weren't interested in sitting and being lectured at, as you mentioned, Janusz. But now, in 2017, we've had some of those original apprentices actually now progress on to do a degree apprenticeship. So to take a step back, I'm Charlotte Fisher-Moorcroft. I lead our degree apprenticeship scheme at IBM. We were attracted by degree apprenticeships because of that combination of the workplace learning and the academic learning, and the idea that we could have someone in our company as a graduate who came not only with that university experience but with that workplace experience as well. We knew that our apprentices were already performing very well in the company and exceeding all expectation. We started off hiring to fill the technical skills gap, but as word of the apprentices spread, then other business units wanted to hire them, and they moved on to business roles, to sales roles, HR apprentices as well. We also had strong partnerships with university, but through something called the ITMB degree, Information Technology Management for Business. And we saw what working with the university could do as a group of employers to give us graduates who had that work experience and employability when they came to us. So in 2015, we were very excited to start with our first degree apprentices at Queen Mary University of London, and also apprentices studying for a degree at Glasgow Caledonian. Since then, we've grown the scheme to 27 degree apprentices in total, and we now actually partner with a number of institutions. We partner with Pearson College to offer rotational business degree apprenticeships. We were always attracted by the idea that doing a degree apprenticeship, our apprentices would meet with apprentices from other organisations and share how things were done in their organisations. So for us, the Pearson rotational degree apprenticeship was the next step in that now we have Chris, one of our degree apprentices, on rotation at Tesco, and Sophia at Direct Line. So they're actually getting that direct experience of our clients and other sectors as well. We partner with Exeter University because that gives us the work pattern where our apprentices can go and spend weeks on Exeter University campus, meet their cohort, and then embark on interactive e-learning. We also partner with Open University, so this is very important for our apprentices that are a bit further along in their career, where there may be 2 or 3 promotions on, and they need to have that flexibility to juggle their time to do everything they have to do as well as study. You asked about how the work-based piece fits in. It seems to be done slightly differently by different universities. So our Queen Mary degree apprentices have a problem that they have to solve and think of how that applies to their business and then present back. Our University of Exeter degree apprentices, they base this on reflective practice. So they're analysing what they do in the workplace and seeing how it meets the university learning outcomes. And it's been interesting as the degree apprenticeships have progressed to see how they're bringing their academic learning to then deliver results in the workplace. So, for example, Tom, who's one of our degree apprentices, was very soon managing an IT rollout project, and at the same time he's learning about stakeholder management, not as part of a work-based module, but he could see that as part of stakeholder management, he needed to make sure everyone in the team was engaged and involved and everyone was fully briefed. And also through what he learned about communication, he managed to communicate his plan to the whole team and get involvement to deliver his project on time. The next stage for us with degree apprentices is looking at level 7 masters, which is a very different group of people. So we're looking at graduates who are perhaps 3 to 5 years in their career and looking for something after they completed their initial education, but also employees who might more traditionally have done an MBA, and we're looking at both business and technical areas as well. So I think we're still at the early stages of the journey, and there's lots to develop in terms of partnership between business and university. So it's an exciting time to be working in this.
Thank you very much. Before I throw open to the floor, I'd like to take Chair's provision, just ask a couple of follow-up questions. It interests me that you have gone straight to, you've either got level 3 or you've gone straight to a degree apprenticeship. I mean, didn't you consider in any sense anything in between, or was there something about the architecture or about the funding or just about the aspirations of apprentices themselves that made you actually say, okay, well, from 3 we go straight to 6?
It was perhaps the architecture of what's available at the time. It was from 3 to 6. Now, our more recent apprentices have level 4, so that opens up a new conversation between us and universities on how we can accredit this prior learning and progress through with that. Mm-hmm. At the moment, with new Trailblazer apprenticeships, it's very, because it's so role-driven, we're actually looking at the role of the apprentice rather than the level of the apprenticeship when we're deciding which ones to offer.
Right. And when you said it was what was available, I mean, I suppose my other question is, you are clearly dedicating a huge amount of time to this, and you've got all of these sort of specialist partnerships. How did you find the academic partners?
I think we weren't coming into it cold. So our university relations programme works with Exeter, and we've had contact with Queen Mary. I think there's a different variety of approach. Some universities are more used to collaborating with business and understood that it's very hard for us to release apprentices for huge amounts of time for study. And they could see the logistical, Exeter, we have this logistical challenge. Our apprentices are all throughout the country, so this e-learning model worked well for us, and they'd clearly thought through that aspect of it as well.
Okay, I think I should throw it open to the floor at this point. I'm conscious that people here come from very different sorts of institutions. Some people, very few people are big, but most of you are probably not very big. And I don't know how far you deal with large companies or how far you're in partnership with other institutions. But just to sort of go back to the title of the session, not written by me, which is about the fact that we may want to have shorter, more flexible courses, more technical offers. I think what we've heard about from Janusz and Charlotte are really fabulous programs and clearly speak to the requirements of certain industrial sectors and large companies now. What strikes me is that they are nonetheless very much within the traditional university architecture, and it may be that is fine, but it's not quite what the rhetoric has been about. The rhetoric has been about the need for a far more varied set of qualifications and courses, and also about making it relatively much easier for small new institutions to come forward. So I'd be very interested in questions and comments from the floor on that theme. I'd like to start. If nobody does. Yeah. And could you please say who you are when you ask the question? Here, please.
Hello, I'm Ben Farquharson. I'm from Hot Courses, actually. I just wanted to start off by saying I completely agree with you, Baroness Wolf, in terms of the university structure, that traditionally it seems a bit siloed. Also, just wanted to compliment you guys, because I think, specifically, Janusz, that model of a school in terms of the way that it decides to engage with students is spot on, in my opinion. I think the question for me is, how can you take that model and apply it on a bigger scheme? What you're describing is something along the lines of, it's strictly within that STEM sort of category, yet it engages with an iterative design process within teaching as well as the subject matter. How can that be extrapolated and applied to other institutions? Because I think that's where you're going to find traction, is trying to reimagine what university is in a broader community. And I know it's a lot of what higher education tries to do in terms of outreach anyway. So I suppose that's my question. How do you make your idea more flexible to fit a more macro idea?
Right. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I think I'm not sure if everybody has something to say on this. I suppose I've got a question for Janusz, which is that is there something that sort of is STEM different? And then particularly for Philippa and Charlotte, as you said, you also had business apprentices. You know, is there anything that's out there at the moment that's going to tend to make this more flexible, or is it actually that, 5 years from now, when actually you're up to your 30th reform with the National Retraining Service, when the dust has cleared, it all looks rather the same. Janusz, do you want to start?
Yes, I may comment. I think it's not that difficult, to be honest, and I'll give you some examples. But what's really the most difficult thing is to start thinking about ourselves, universities, from a different perspective, rather than searching what's convenient for us as institutions, and then lobbying governments in order to acknowledge what's really optimal for us. We have to look at it, what's really best for our students. And by the way, I'm not saying that what we are creating is better. Not at all. It is different than what other colleagues are offering. And what's really important for us is to offer diversity of degrees, variety of courses, different pathways for young people to achieve their degrees. And if we're going to do it in engineering or technology, I don't think it's very difficult to do it in other fields as well. You have to just really take the bold decision to do it. Because if you just change one element, which is, say, the kind of academic program that you're offering is not good enough. You have to look at the entire process, and the process starts with recruiting and admissions. I should comment that in our case, the admission process is also different. We are not admitting students based on their grades. We are admitting students based on who they are. They are human beings with talents, biases, preferences, grades, and so on. So marks for us, grades, it's only one element of the entire proposition. So, and by the way, what we require from our students, these are engineering students, what we require from them is to tell us why they would like to become engineers or humanist engineers, and they have to do so in a very creative way. Not writing just an essay or paragraph and so on. They have to send us a song or a video clip, or they have to have a poem and so on, because you have to give them an opportunity to shine from the outset. Now, by the way, we also don't require all of the necessities in math and physics and so on. They don't need to have it prior to coming to our university. They have to have it ultimately, so we would be happy to provide them with this requirement, because the system is designed a way that students in this country and in North America as well, they have to decide that they would like to be engineers when they are 14 years old. They have no clue whatsoever what really engineering is, other than what their perception of engineering is. So of course, many of them, a lot of women actually, they are not prepared to do so. So we have to give them a different opportunity.
Okay, Philippa.
What was my question? About whether it was going to really be different in 5 years' time?
But partly, I mean, what was, yes, I mean, at the moment we seem to be very much within basically remaining bifurcated structure, universities, degrees.
Well, so I'm going to be an optimist in answering that question. So I would say that we're in early days of these reforms. You're never going to get change overnight. I think one of the reasons that we are looking at level 4-5 in particular is that in building T-levels, which are the moment at level 3, we want to build some more pathways which are underpinned by labour market demand, so that people have, basically we want people to have great choices, which are a much greater variety of choices from level 3 up. And we notice although the data, we have got, haven't got huge numbers of starts on apprenticeships. We have got obviously quite a lot, but we haven't got huge numbers of starts. But we are noticing there that the skill mix there is higher, and we are seeing more level 4, level 5 type apprenticeships as well as degree apprenticeships, and level 3, which is interesting as well. And I have spoken to various employers who have said to me that they are really enjoying the fact that they can design level 4 and level 5 apprenticeships. So I would say that we're starting to build.
So from the point of view of people in this room, this is something they should be looking out for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Can I take both of the two at the back, and then I'll start with Charlotte this time. Can I take both of them, because I'm conscious that we're, as always, galloping through the time slots.
Yes, my name is John Annette from Richmond University in London. But my question actually more reflects my previous experience being a Pro-Vice Master at Birkbeck College London. There are 40% less part-time students in higher education. There's been a serious decline in mature learners benefiting from higher education. One of the problems in the past has been funding in terms of the rulings on student finance in terms of equivalent or lower qualifications, banning students from funding for degrees. Now, my question is, to what extent will, for example, to Charlotte, will do degree apprenticeships provide greater opportunities for mature students who want to re-enter, particularly if they've done a degree in one area which they believe no longer reflects their career aspirations? So the role of degree apprenticeships in providing opportunities for mature learners. And I think that the other thing is, I think the paradigms are very complex. I mean, we have blended learning in my place. We have extensive workplace learning in my place, but we don't yet do degree apprenticeships. And I think there's a lot of innovation in higher education in so-called traditional universities who are really trying to experiment with work-based learning, experiential learning, to provide exciting learning opportunities for students, including flexible learning for students.
And can I take the one other as well?
That's a good point.
Oops, at the back.
Joy Elliott-Bowman from Independent HE. A question a lot of our members have asked is about how we put all of these different pieces of teaching for industry together. So Philippa talked about lots of different changes happening in the technical space. We have many people in this room running accelerated degrees, but also level 2 and 3 provision leading into those accelerated degrees. So really sort of kind of taking students without the qualifications through those systems. And people doing really innovative things. We heard yesterday from the London Institute of Banking and Finance and on sort of that future career path and the professional qualifications that can follow as well. And there's lots of change happening across here, in lots of technical qualification consultations out. There's 700 pages on higher education qualifications out. My question is how are we going to make this work together? And most importantly, how are we going to make it work for students so that a student can follow the journey that they want to follow, not based on the funding system from one FE versus HE versus lifelong learning, not versus part-time versus full-time, but the journey they want to take. How are we going to put all of these pieces together so the student can get the funding they need for the course they want to take when they want to take it?
Thank you. I think some of that is very much for Philippa, so I'm going to ask Philippa to reply about the architecture, the funding architecture, and then ask Charlotte to say a little bit about how you put all the different bits together from at a company point of view.
So I think that's a really good question because it is tremendously... there's a lot of confusion and fragmentation out there because if you're, and I'm just going to pick a 16-year-old, although in fact I'm just as concerned about the stock of people who are already working who need to carry on learning and refresh their skills. And, if you provide people with confusing, fragmentary information, they will go with what they know best. And that it tends to be A-levels and universities, which is what I was referring to earlier. So I don't have a magic wand answer to that, but I do have some work that we are doing on what we're calling the choice architecture, which we are talking a lot to students about how they make their choices and how we can help them sort of navigate what is a very complex landscape and what we can do to simplify it, which is why I was talking a bit about brands earlier, and and signpost people better, which is not necessarily all for government to do, but what students, etc., would respond to, because I do regard that as being, when I referred earlier to the wraparound of things like information, advice and guidance and culture and behaviour, that was the sort of thing I had in mind that we had to really look at as well in order to, because if we just add complexity, people won't be able to cope with it.
And what about the disappearing adult part-timers?
Yes. So ELQs have been relaxed for engineering and technology, and they're also being relaxed for STEM. Part-time numbers have been declining since 2008. They obviously declined more rapidly post-2012. So I think there are both economic issues as well as perhaps funding issues involved. So we are talking, as you might imagine, to people like the Open University about part-time provision. As I said, we're doing stuff on ELQs and we introduced part-time maintenance loans, etc. So But, as I said, there is also evidence that it's related to what's going on in the labour market and wages growth and all the rest of it. So we are digging into that, with working with the sector on it.
Charlotte, how do you put the bits together at
How do
company
we fit
level?
it together? We're very lucky in IBM to have an organisation called Foundation where we manage all our early professionals, so our graduates, our apprentices, our gap years and our degree apprentices and university placements. And so there is some flow through from all the schemes to each other. So you could start by doing a gap year, you're perhaps not sure what you want to do in the future, you can decide if IBM's the place for you, and then you could do an apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship. But also we see that university placements are a great way for people to get experience of IBM and the workplace. So we also have a university placement scheme that acts as a pipeline for our graduate scheme as well. So there is some interlinking there. Obviously, the new complexity is with people that are further on in their careers and introducing degree apprenticeships or apprenticeships there. And in the conversations that we've had with individuals and with our business lines, there is some demand there.
Okay, I've got, I think, sort of 8 minutes before Philippa turns into pumpkin. So let me take 2 more questions together, and can you make them quite brief? One at the back there.
Thank you. Paul Kirkham, Chief Executive, ICMP University. I hope nobody minds us calling ourselves a university. We definitely aspire to be one. There's been a recent drop in applications for apprenticeships. Employers describe the rules as complex, difficult to access funding, which raises the question of funding more generally across the higher education sector, which is really a limitation to diversity of provision. And the second point I would make, it's very difficult to see a route through into apprenticeships in the creative sectors, which is where they really would be applicable. But it's who's the employer? That remains the question. Thank you.
Right, do we have one more question, or shall I just or have everybody's dried up and wants their coffee? Yes, one more there. Can we just take that other?
Sure, yeah. Carl Ligo, currently with the Office for Students. One of my portfolio roles is as a chair of a multi-academy trust. We have about 1,000 pupils in the 6th form, and we did a piece of research with them as to why they're not choosing apprenticeships over going off to university. And one of the biggest issues is not about information, it's the fact that they don't like the idea of working and being appraised and the length of the qualification that would follow. I just wonder if that's contributing to the issue that the way in which apprenticeships are currently designed is putting off the market.
Sorry, what was the last bit? They don't like working, being appraised?
They don't like the idea of on-the-work appraisal, the idea of each week constantly being appraised by an employer. It's different if they're at the university. They feel as though they've got room to make mistakes.
Oh, okay. All right, no, that's interesting.
Right.
Take that back.
Okay, Philippa, do you want to start?
So as I said, we've got, so the data show quite interesting, different mix, different levels of apprenticeships from previously, and employers have 24 months to spend their apprenticeship money. So we are definitely, digging into the figures and talking to lots of people about what we think is going on, but it is very early days. On the creative side, I'm very happy to sort of have a conversation about that sort of offline, as it were, and also to talk to the Institute for Apprenticeships, and I presume you're also talking to DCMS. Just happy to take that point away. And I'm also very interested in Carl Ligo's point, because I said that also plays into some of the stuff we're getting from our work with students as well. So I'll feed that in too. Thank you.
Right. Janusz, any comment?
Yes, I'm a comment.
This is your final go, so get everything else in that you want, but quickly that you wanted to say, and nobody's given you a chance to.
I know I've taken more than my share.
No, but you have a very, very interesting. So anyway.
Right. But look, I think with regards to the comment about sixth form students and not liking that they are being assessed every week and so on, I don't know if it is quantitative. It seems to me somewhat anecdotal, because the truth is that at the university, students are being assessed every week anyway, in a different way. I just wanted to make a comment about what previous colleague mentioned about the things being in flux and change and so on. I can appreciate that indeed the only person that likes change seems to be a baby with a wet nappy. So it is true that we have quite a few changes in this country in higher education, but I think it is good because what we are trying to do, I understand what the government is trying to do, and we as providers as well, is to find a certain pattern in the variety of options that we are offering or we should be offering to young people. One critical element, in my opinion, is partnership. There's a very good African proverb. It says that if you want to go fast, then travel alone. If you want to go far in life, travel together. So that's, I think, the nature of future partnerships that we are going to create, not only among ourselves, universities, but partnership with the government and partnership with employers, will create a platform and hopefully a springboard for us to attract even more students to our institutions and give them an opportunity to seamlessly go from one program to another, hopefully.
Thank you. Charlotte.
It's interesting to hear about the perceptions of people in the sixth form and this fear that they'll be constantly assessed. I think it'd be great if they could actually meet more degree apprentices and other apprentices as well, because there's so many varieties of assessment we use with our apprentices and they get so much support and it's all designed to help them learn. And I think probably the best sell for apprenticeships is actually for more apprentices to engage with people from sixth form colleges, schools, and we try to do that with our apprentices, but I think there's still more work that could be done with that.
Thank you very much. I found comments very interesting. I have to say that I still stand by what I said right at the beginning, which is that we keep coming back to the young, and for a society that's supposed to be worrying about lifelong learning, I don't feel that we've really, we have a large number of adult apprenticeships at the moment, but nobody seems to know very much about them. Everything seems to be about still the modal young learner. And I think this is as much a challenge for apprenticeship as it is for anything else. And this actually comes back to what Carl was saying, which I was also very surprised by, because when there's a really desirable apprenticeship, they are queuing around the block for it. So maybe part of the issue is that there are many 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are in fact not making sensible choices. And one of the issues for us is how to stop them then making the wrong choices and making final choices, because I think anybody who's been in the labour market for a while is not going to feel that they don't want to be an apprentice because they're being appraised. I mean, it seems, I find that really a very, very worrying thing, and I hope it's just anecdotal and just a chance, because first of all, the university is also praising them all the time, and secondly, that is it's a rather worrying comment. Thank you very much indeed to everybody. I certainly feel that I learned a lot, and I hope everybody else did. And we will see how reforms number 29 and 30 proceed. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.